Yeah, scaling it back to when I was a kid, right? My grandfather always taught me to walk up and shake someone's hand, right? So the way I grew up on the farm, right, as I was taught to walk up and shake somebody's hand. So I'd like to think like all the way back since then was my sales experience, right? The number one mistake that any SDR or account executive is going to make is not following up properly. It is one of the easiest things to do. Like, it's so simple, especially with the technology we have today. Like the companies like Outreach, the companies like Apollo, the companies like SalesLoft, whoever, right? Well, I turn around, something distracts me. I walk away from the laptop, or one of my colleagues pings me. I change tabs. I forget about that calendar link. I forget about you. You never reach back out to me. Well, guess what? It's a lost lead for you, right? And it's as hot as can be right when that lead happens. I think the first thing you have to do is take your shoes off and sit on the other side of the desk and put your feet in the shoes of the prospect. Where do they live? What do they think about? What are their pains? I've taken Sandler training, I've taken Challenger selling, I've done all these things, right? And one of the best books I've ever read is called The Coaching Habit. Go check it out if anyone wants to. It's fantastic. It taught me a lot of things about questions. But like, how you're going to stand out now as a BDR is something I call killer questions. When you get in that conversation with someone, sure, you're going to want to pitch a meeting. But you pitching a meeting, you're doing that for you. Sure, you might be doing it for the prospect in the long run, but realistically, you're doing it to try to hit your quota. So we need to be creative in how we actually try to hit your quota, and we need to be creative in actually caring about the prospect and fixing their problem. So like, if I can get them to understand that I actually care about their pain, then we've got a sale, baby. Yeah, without a question, right? That one person's company, I would say a golden ticket organization, is a founder who has meetings on his calendar or her calendar, and they're busy. They don't have time to do follow-ups. They don't have time to focus on actually closing the deals. They don't have time. And like, the big differentiator is, hey, what if I could just do all that for you? And you can focus specifically on getting deals through your door.
On today's episode of Prospecting Pros, we have Dillon Tucker. Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, John. Really appreciate it.
So the what I like to do is to start with every guest is just give us a little bit of background on your career. Like, where did you get started in sales, and like, how did you make your way to where you are today? Walk us through that journey and touch on some of the job experiences you've had along the way.
Yeah, scaling it back to when I was a kid, right? My grandfather always taught me to walk up and shake someone's hand, right? So the way I grew up on the farm, right, as I was taught to walk up and shake somebody's hand. So I'd like to think like all the way back since then was my sales experience, right? But once I graduated college, got a finance degree in communications, and after I started in the financial field of getting your Series 6 in mutual funds and selling life and health annuities, insurances, all these jazz. I had a colleague and one of my best friends reach out and bring me into the world of SaaS. And since then, it's been a journey, man. Around 10 plus years in SaaS thus far. Started out as a BDR, as most of you guys and gals do. Transitioned into player coach BDR leadership. Transitioned into full BDR leadership. Ultimately transitioned into closing deals and account executive leadership as well. With the majority of my experience being BDR though. But that being said, now I kind of do some fractional work on the side as well for organizations as a chief growth officer. And all in all, come in and build sales processes for organizations. It's just a super high level version of my journey.
Okay. Let's talk through some of those. I want to talk about, you starting as a BDR. I think you were at Outreach. Is that your first experience as getting your feet wet as a BDR?
So first experience, I lived in Florida at the time. At the time, it was 2018 before like the whole work from home thing kind of started. So most tech hubs were Boston, San Francisco, New York. So my buddy was like, hey, if you want to get in this field, you're going to have to go to one of them. And he lived in Boston. So I worked for it kind of went in tandem with my degree, because I had a finance degree. This company was called Centage, and it's a budgeting software, right? I was driving an hour and a half, 2 hours to work every day.
Ooh,
and back, just to break even, shopping at the Dollar Tree for the first 6 months of me living in Boston. Blessed and thankful for the experience, because it got me kicked off in this career, right? but at the same time, it was rough. That being said, I realized at that point, just the Boston experience wasn't necessarily for me. I had lived in the cold my whole life already. I was ready for some warmth in my life. So I made my way back down to Florida because I was originally from West Virginia and I lived up north. So I made my way back down to Florida, and that's when I landed Outreach. Outreach was really, really fun because I was there just over a year and a quarter, and I came on as a frontline lower level BDR, got promoted within 3 to 6 months, and was more of a corporate level BDR, and I had the opportunity to work with some really, really great leadership because in that just year and a quarter I was there, we went from 20 to 120 million in ARR, right? It was like super high growth, right?
Yeah.
Which is just a really fun journey to be a part of. And in that, it gave me an opportunity to work with a lot of the leadership and determine where I wanted to go. It's kind of where my journey into BDR management and just management as a whole from sales perspective started, because they offered a mentorship program. I wanted to be in that ASAP, right? Once I got in the mentorship program, I was mentoring one of these girls who had just started. She was in her second month. She was like, "Dillon, I'm not going to hit quota." I was like, "Let's go on a walk." we went in. I was in the office in Seattle at the time for like a sales kickoff event and stuff. So we go, we sit down, we talk about it. I let her kind of explain how she feels about the situation and where she's going to be. And all in all, and this is a good learning experience for a lot of you BDOs out there, it's a lot of it's mindset, right? Whether you sit there and you're banging out a bunch of dials or you're sending emails or you're using LinkedIn or whatever you're doing to try to get these leads and these opportunities, right? The way you present yourself, the way you show up and you're standing and you're talking on the phone during the day, right? All of your body language really impacts the impact of you hitting your quota. So that's what we kind of discussed, and we shifted her mindset. She went back and she hit her quota 2 days later. And that's when I kind of woke up and I was like,
awesome,
man, the impact that I made on her within just a moment was just such a good feeling, right? For her, right? Because she ended up hitting her number, and that just made me so happy. So it was a really fun ride at Outreach, and since then I've worked at a multitude of other organizations as well, scaling out their programs.
Few things I want to touch on there. One, how did that exactly work? Like, what was in it for you to mentor the other person? Like, did they have some type of payment? Like, was it kind of like, hey, if you do this, you'll get a taste of what it's like to be in management? Like, how did they spin it to both sides?
Yeah, so great question. Always thought of myself as a go-getter. So any opportunity that I saw to find my way to my next step in the organization, I jumped on it, right? So whether it was me going into management or being an account executive, that mentorship step was still a step to me getting promoted, right? So I looked at that as just an opportunity to step up the ladder, And cool part that came with it is our VP of sales development at the time, Steve. He was actually the previous VP of sales development at Tony Robbins. So he had a ton of knowledge. And since I was a mentor and I ended up having that experience and decided to go into management, I had the opportunity to take management classes with him directly, right? And that was just such a fun experience, and because of his knowledge was just an absolute wealth. I still interact with him on LinkedIn sporadically today, and but my guys managed thousands of people, right? BDRs, and Tony Robbins, one of the most high engine, let alone Outreach, one of the most high engine startups ever, right? So to answer your question long-windedly, I just wanted that next step.
Okay, but did they offer anything, or was it just like, hey, this is something you have to jump on and be willing to invest your own time and money?
Invest your own time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, I was curious because I have a big team of BDRs, and that's one of the things is like a lot of people want to be promoted, but they don't unless there's like a financial or something in front of them to do something. They're like, why would I do that? I know why I can be making calls during that time. And so I was just curious how that program was built out.
No, I think what's important is as the BDRs learn and grow as people, right? Like, yes, you can be making calls at that time, but once you've been a BDR for so long, you should understand how to manage your day a little bit better, right? I remember when I first started as a BDR, sure, I would make 100 calls in a day, right? By the time I was a BDR for 2 years, I could make 100 calls in an hour, right? So like you kind of figure out through your journey as a BDR to manage your day in different ways.
It's funny how earlier you were talking about the long drives, the commute, going to the dollar store, and it being rough, but also worth it. It's a lot of people I talk to, and also including myself, I have some of these experiences too, is you have these early jobs in your career that kind of suck, but looking back on it is super good experience. And it's like it's pretty rough at the time, but then you look back on it, you're like, wow, that was some of the best experience I could have had that jump started or leaped my career forward.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and so, if anyone out there is listening, um, if you're getting good experience, it might be worth it. It kind of sucks for a year or so, but it's some of the best experience. I was the first sales hire at a few different startups. It was a mess, right? But you learn so much along the way on how to do certain things, and you're wearing so many hats, and get the opportunity to do things that you wouldn't normally if you're at a bigger organization and you kind of have the guardrails up on what you can and can't do.
Yeah, it definitely never hurts to get your hands dirty, John. I completely agree. I would say a majority of my experience is actually teams who didn't have BDRs at all, or had like one account executive or something like that, right? Where you just had to come in and build it from the ground up. So you may come in as a head of sales development or a BDR manager, but you're actually marketing, BDR, account executive, head of sales, all the above.
Yeah.
That's what makes it a really fun journey to wear all the hats.
So moving on in your career, like that was you mentioned outreach in the mentorship program. What else was it like? What kind of did leadership see in you specifically as like, hey, Dillon actually, rather than having him continue to be a BDR, he could actually be a really good sales development manager. Like, what was it that they saw in you, or you saw in yourself that ultimately you're like, yeah, this is the fork in the road. Now I want to go towards management.
Yeah. So I think not only that moment that I explained earlier, but I think just my desire to help people grow kind of was a realization for me, because I always wanted to do that. Even back when I was waiting tables, right? I'm giving people food, or like I'm serving people, giving people things back in the day, right? Like it's a way of helping others in some form or fashion, right? So that desire to help others really was a key catalyst for me. But I think also, it goes back to my first week at Outreach when I was doing training in Seattle. And a lot of you people who follow a lot of BDR leaders out there, you might know Ken Amar, right? Or Sam Nelson, right? They were direct leadership at Outreach at the time. And part of the training program in the beginning was we would do a cold call like session, right? And I like to pride myself on the phones. And I love teaching my reps about the phones, because the phones will never be dead. They will always be alive in some form or way. We may get less connects, but they will still be alive. So like,
100% agree.
yeah, no question. So I end up winning. Like we have a training group of, I don't know how many at the time, 10 people, whatever it is. And two of us from Tampa, and the other 6 or 8 from Seattle. And you pitch your way up until you're pitching the VP. And then I like did the cold call with the VP. They said that I won. And at the time, the office was in Fremont, which is like near Seattle outskirts. And downstairs was the Brooks building. I'd never like bought a nice pair of shoes before, like other than like maybe some dress shoes, whatever my grandma might have got me because I was a kid or whatever, right? They took me downstairs, bought me a nice pair of Brooks. And as you guys know, Brooks are really nice running shoes, like $250 pair of shoes, whatever. I felt so good after that. So like, I think where the journey started was seeing them coach me through that fashion, right? And then as I transitioned and got promoted and moved my way up, the real opportunity was understanding the value of I can help other people get out of whatever they're in, whether they're driving Uber, whether they're doing something, or whether they're doing nothing, right? Whatever they're doing, and start their career into something awesome very, very quickly. As long as they share that positivity, that drive, and that tenacity that I bring to the table. If they share that, then they're going to bring value into a role like this.
So moving into when you actually became an SDR manager, it looks like you had several different positions. What are some of the common mistakes you see, whether that be in the past or in today's world? What are some of the common mistakes that you see SDRs make, and how do you think they can fix those?
The number one mistake that any SDR or account executive is going to make is not following up properly. It is one of the easiest things to do. Like, it's so simple, especially with the technology we have today. The companies like Outreach, the companies like Apollo, the companies like SalesLoft, whoever, right? The technology's built. All you have to do is click the AI button that says build the follow-up sequence for me, and then plug the leads in after you hold the discovery call, or plug the leads in after the prospect says yes. I have a sequence. And I'm sure my LinkedIn will be shared in this. So if you guys want to check it out, right? Like, it's in my LinkedIn. It's where it's a sequence that gets 100% reply rates. You ask me how, right? Anytime someone tells you yes, what does a typical salesperson do? They go, okay, here's my Calendly link. What did I do there? I just put all the pressure and work effort on you, John, to fill out this form, to go do things, right? Well, I turn around, something distracts me. I walk away from the laptop, or one of my colleagues pings me. I change tabs. I forget about that Calendly link. I forget about you. You never reach back out to me. Well, guess what? It's a lost lead for you, right? And it's as hot as can be right when that lead happens. My time sent follow-up sequence essentially just says, hey, you said yes. Let's do it. And 100% of the time, it works every time. So, I think the biggest mistake you can do as a BDR is just not properly following up. And I don't mean like harping people. I don't mean like calling them every day. I don't mean, sending an email every other hour, right? I mean, doing it in a proper way that doesn't intrude, but also is respectful and also accomplishes the goal of trying to help someone do their goal.
Yeah, and to add on to that is, not everyone's just going to be, you're not going to catch everybody at the perfect time, right? Some people are going to say, hey, I'm at a conference this week. Hey, I'm out of town. Hey, I have a meeting to discuss something like this next week, right? So you're going to have to follow up with people anyways. You're just not going to catch everybody and get them on a meeting right away, right? So you have to build a follow-up process. Now, whether that's something the org has built out, or you just need to be on top of your own game and create follow-up tasks or follow-up sequences, like that's up to you. But yeah, I mean, you're just not going to catch everybody at the right time. You have to build that out, and people will appreciate when you follow up in like within the terms that they said to, right? If they say follow up in May, you could be like, hey, you said to follow up in May, right? If you can repeat their own words back to them, then they're likely to be like, yeah, I did say that, right? Okay. Yeah, this is a good time. No, this isn't. But the follow-up is so important.
This episode is sponsored by LevelUp Leads, a B2B sales development and appointment setting agency. Companies always need pipeline, but they oftentimes don't want to hire SDRs internally. The whole process is risky and expensive. You've got hiring costs, onboarding, training, additional spend on your tech stack, a few months to ramp up. And with that being said, SDRs are a high turnover position, and the person you hire might not necessarily work out, so you need to start all over again. That's why companies outsource this. LevelUp Leads allocates a team of people, their tech stack, so you can onboard and launch your campaigns in about a week. They set qualified meetings in your calendar so your team has more selling opportunities. Visit levelupleads.io today to learn more. All right, now back to the show.
Yeah, that's how you build pipeline, John. If you get 10 leads this month, 4 next month, that's fantastic. Not every lead needs to be a right now. If you come into it's May now, if you come into August and you have 30 leads ready to go, your job's easy, right? And I think one last note to touch on is something I call "let's do this." Right? You can ask any of my previous BDRs; they love this thing. Right? Like if someone's like, let's say your ask at the end of your email says this Tuesday afternoon work, but you don't get a specific time, right? The prospect responds yes. Okay, great, John. Let's do this. I'm going to send an invite to you for 3 p.m. You're in New York, right? Okay, 3 p.m. Eastern, right? If the time works, just accept the invite so I don't reach you. If not, just click propose new time on the invite. And more than happy to work with your schedule. Sound good? Taking every single inch of lift off the prospect. So as you go through that journey of follow-up and as you go through the journey of being a BDR, think about putting yourself in the shoes of the prospect and making their life easy.
Yeah, I agree. Another one is just to, one, always talk in their time zone, right? Don't make them do the extra work of navigating the different time zones. Offer a few different times plus a calendar link, right? So you're giving them the options to select versus also like an option to click and choose more.
Yep.
That's something I found work. Now managing BDRs, SDRs, what has historically been the channel or channels that you've seen convert the best?
Yeah, I think what's really interesting is multi-channel prospecting is what's key, right? If you're not doing all three, you're not doing it right. Or all four.
All three being email, LinkedIn, calling?
Yeah. I mean, I think just to make it simplistic, right? Let's keep a basis here of email, LinkedIn, and calling, right? If we want to go real hard, you can think GitHub. You can think all these other possible routes of getting a hold of people, right? Texting, WhatsApp, whatever, right? But I think for simplicity cases, right? I think if you're not doing those first basic three, then you're missing out. Now there's so much information and data out there about how to build some of these sequences, and your leadership should help you, right? Across the board, right? You shouldn't be building all these things yourselves, but if you're in a position where you have to, go look for resources, right? Like, Sam Nelson is a great guy to go to for resources. He has a giant Substack online. That's really, really awesome. Additionally, I think, the phones are always good if you know how to use the phones, but I think now, with email reply rates being 1% to 3% across the board industry wide, with connect rates on the phones being 1% typically at organizations, right? Like, what do we do? In my consulting business, right? Like, we're getting anywhere from a 20 to 30% reply rate on LinkedIn. Now, replies aren't everything, as you guys know, right? Like, you want quality opportunities in the funnel, but either way, 20x the at-bats that you're getting is a heck of a lot better of an opportunity, right? So I think it's about having the balance, but understanding the way the market shifts and moving the balance from one bucket to another as the market moves.
I 100% agree with the market shift, right? It's like, I think the things go in cycles, right? There was in the early 2000s, email was working really well, and that has completely gone away. Like, doesn't mean it doesn't work, but it's just much harder. Now, LinkedIn can be really good, but also it's much more limiting in terms of the outreach you can do. There's a few different other avenues, right? Like, you could do in-mails and different things, but generally you're limited on connections.
Yep.
Unless you have a big network and you can do first connections, right? There's that too, but not everybody has a big network. In fact, most people don't.
Yep.
There's the phones, right? Then there's different things like PPC. But yeah, I mean, there's you notice these waves of hey, this is working, and then all of a sudden everyone follows what people say to do, and then all of a sudden that channel's crowded, right? And so you notice these waves, or something like PPC, right? If everyone's bidding on the same keyword, well, what's going to happen? The price is going to start going up and up and up, right? Mm-hmm. So then people are going to move off that channel. Also, you got to think about, where are these people, like, multi-channel 100%, right? Because you just don't know who's going to respond where, or they might see your phone call or email, but then respond in the other channel. It happens to me all the time. Well, I will do that. Someone sends me an email, and then I get their call and it kind of registers. Oh yeah, I did see that, and it's about XYZ. Moving on. So you were the head of sales development at Common Room. Tell me about that and that experience.
Yeah, great experience. When I started, there was essentially no BDR team, right? Came on, built it from the ground up, hired the BDRs, got the ball rolling. As I mentioned, like most of my experiences, right? It's an interesting one because it's also a very high scale growth startup right now, right? And BDRs, you're oftentimes, if you're in some of these startups, you're gonna get offers of equity and things like that. always consider those types of things, because it's always well worth your time to at least think about it and talk to your financial advisor. But like outside of that, I think like the journey at Common Room, I was there like a year and a half or something. The journey was intense in a lot of good ways, right? Because the tech was moving very fast. When I joined, we were more of a community platform because we were selling to developers and the developer world in a sense, right? To try to make sure they were able to connect with everyone in their community, right? Something we realized, excuse me, is that a lot of the people who you want to sell to are in the community. Think like Salesforce developer forums. There's hundreds of thousands of people in these forums. Like Salesforce should be, the account executives and BDRs should be looking and getting flags of, hey, like this prospect is actually asking questions and you're in an active deal cycle with them, right? Or this prospect is asking questions and they're just not getting your email that you're sending them. They're not getting your phone calls. Why are they not getting your phone calls? Like you as a BDR can say, hey, I'm actually reaching out to you. Let me help you with that. That's what Common Room does. I think going back to like the beginning of our conversation and talking about the different avenues of what people can do, tools like Common Room, who have a free trial, are really, really great tools to utilize in a sense that say, hey, person is actually asking questions on GitHub or in this forum or in this Slack community or somewhere, and you're actually reaching out to them. You're just not connecting the dots and using the right personalization because you don't even know what they're thinking about or what their pain is, right? So finding your prospects in the right place is a key piece of success for people.
So what's that like? You're basically getting the department off the ground, and I don't know how much guidance you have, but like knowing which channels to use, knowing how much to test a particular channel. What's that like, and what's your thought process as you walk into that and trying to get that department off the ground?
Yeah, so great question. Depends on the market, depends on the industry. I think the first thing you have to do is take your shoes off and sit on the other side of the desk and put your feet in the shoes of the prospect. Where do they live? What do they think about? What are their pains? I've taken Sandler training, I've taken Challenger selling, I've done all these things, right? And one of the best books I've ever read is called The Coaching Habit. Go check it out if anyone wants to. It's fantastic. It taught me a lot of things about questions. But like how you're going to stand out now as a BDR is something I call killer questions. When you get into that conversation with someone, sure, you're going to want to pitch a meeting. But you pitching a meeting, you're doing that for you. Sure, you might be doing it for the prospect in the long run, but realistically, you're doing it to try to hit your quota. So we need to be creative in how we actually try to hit your quota, and we need to be creative in actually caring about the prospect and fixing their problem. So hey, like whatever you're selling, right? Let's say it's Common Room, right? The problem might be the deals aren't closing fast enough. The problem might be the prospects aren't asking all the questions they need to. The problem might be the AEs aren't asking the right questions they need to, right? Okay, so VP of sales, right? Like what are your AEs asking today on these discovery calls to drive the pain out of the prospect, right? They're asking this and this and this, right? Okay, dig in a little bit more. Okay, dig in just a little bit more. And then you probably found your golden nugget that you can connect your value to. So I think in the long run, we really want to stand out by asking prospects the right questions. Once we ask them the right questions and understand their real pain, then we can connect value and book meetings.
Yeah, and sometimes it's as simple as rephrasing the same question, right? Yep. It's like just it lands a little bit different. But I think your point here is the killer questions is what will lead to people wanting to have the meeting rather than you just pitching the meeting.
Yeah, and I think the value will speak for itself too. The prospect will connect the dots.
And take me to where you are today, right? So you said you're essentially a fractional chief growth officer. How are you getting new clients? And when you do start with a new client, what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. Through a multitude of ways. It really just depends. I could work with a 1-person startup, or I could work with a developer-focused 10-person, or I could work with a 500-person, 50-person sales team, right? It really just depends. But like, how do I bring in new clients? Oftentimes it's LinkedIn right now. There's a multitude of ways on LinkedIn, whether it be the projects offers that come through, whether it be the just me doing automated LinkedIn outreach from a personalized perspective, whether it be me utilizing my network. I think what's important is that you spread the base of running different campaigns, and don't think of campaigns as a marketing campaign. Think of campaigns as, I see this group of people, they're my connections or they're not, right? If they're not, how do I get my foot in the door? Once I get my foot in the door and I get a 40 to 50 to 60% connect rate with the 500-person list that I built, what's the next thing that I can ask them to make them think that I'm not selling them? Because I'm not.
$1 million question.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, man. I want to say I'm genuinely curious about what they're doing and about like how I can help them, because I've always wanted to help people. So like if there's an opportunity for me to actually help you, then that's what I want to do. So like if I can get them to understand that I actually care about their pain, then we've got a sale, baby. Because like it's an easy closed door, like easy open door to come through and then close one at that point, right? So I think just going back to thinking about those questions, man, that's the golden ticket.
And I would imagine based off that company size, it's going to look vastly different on what it looks like once you peel the curtains back. Like that one person company is going to look completely different than the more established company, right? And so like I imagine you're going to be used and pulled in different ways.
Yeah, without a question, right? That one person company, I would say a golden ticket organization, is a founder who has meetings on his calendar or her calendar, and they're busy. They don't have time to do follow-ups. They don't have time to focus on actually closing the deals. They don't have time. And like the big differentiator is, hey, what if I could just do all that for you? And you can focus specifically on getting deals through your door. They'd say, oh my gosh, like if my sales cycle is 60 days and I can cut it to 30, shoot, that means I'm doubling my sales essentially, right? So as long as you can connect that value, then that's going to be your really way to break in.
Well, Dillon, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. I enjoyed learning a little bit more about your journey from starting from SDR to management and then now into fractional chief growth officer.
Yeah, of course, John.
Experience. Where's the best people to find you? You mentioned LinkedIn, but is there anywhere else? Where's the best, if someone hears this and what you're saying really resonates, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, call me, 863-632-7590. Otherwise you can use any of these tools and find my email address or what have you. But yeah, feel free to reach out anytime. I love mentorship. I've had so many BDRs over the years just reach out to me after a conversation like this, and account executives as well. Just ask questions and chat. And to this day, I have stories and shout out a lot of my BDRs, right? Just a couple come to mind, but like who reach out to me to this day and say, hey, Dillon, what you taught me came up in this today. And I'm like,
that's
yes.
Awesome.
It feels good every time. So I'm always open to conversations with anyone, anytime.
Thanks, Dillon. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks, John. Cheers.